The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of how you play the game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. So anyway, that was the first time that I saw an adult film star name herself after her favorite math teacher.
Oh. That's nice.
Está bonito or bonita.
Bonita, yes.
Yeah, yes. That's yeah. So I know. That was a good story.
There it is.
And there it is. So
great. Yeah.
How is this an awkward way to start the show? Or?
Oh wait, we're recording. Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
it's a good thing I clicked the recording because for some reason it stopped and now we're recording again. So
this has been great.
We'll start the show now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, welcome everybody to How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Furlong, with you as we talked about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the first episode of the month of November. The year is 2021. Glad you can be with us. As always, check us out on the interwebs. Our address is osipfoundation.org. Contact the show via email with the address podcast@osipfoundation.org. Facebook.com/OSIP Twitter and Instagram @OSIP Foundation, hashtag How You Play the Game. We're also on YouTube. And of course, across the way from me on the screen, as always, is the producer engineer of the show, Mr. Sean Ryan. Sean, hello. How are you? Please don't freeze.
Remember these pens?
Oh, yeah.
The Uniball Vision Micro pen?
Yeah, that was the story of my childhood.
Yeah, this is it still works. You believe that?
That's amazing. How long have you had that pen?
This pen is like 20 years. What is it? Like more than 25 years old.
Wow.
And it still works.
Well, they always say that pen is mightier.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even use it anymore though.
Well, you don't write usually.
No, nor do I read.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So,
but
besides that, I have a leaky laundry room, so that's fun.
Hey, leaky laundry room is the title of my upcoming autobiography. So,
yeah, I'm a recent new homeowner.
I thought you were going to say newlywed for a second.
A recent new homeowner, just a new homeowner.
Yeah.
In my condo. Condo.
I can't wait for you to write a series of chorales about the leaky laundry room.
Oh, don't worry, they're coming.
It's the minor key will be about it being leaky, and the major key will be about it being fixed. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
And that way, we'd have to do minor first and then major second, and then we'll.
Everything in the major one will just be a major second.
Oh God! And there's no such thing as a minor first. So.
Well,
that's
out
the window. Little music theory to start our listeners off.
We've lost everybody now with that and the one-liner that I just thought of to start the show. So, now that we've completely lost everybody.
Well, let's just have a talk amongst ourselves then.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of talk amongst ourselves, so you and I were talking about what we wanted to do in this episode.
Yes.
And I think we agreed that now would be an appropriate time to kind of swerve away from sports for a second and go back to,
which we do every so often.
Yeah. I mean, it keeps things fresh,
but it's all within the realm of sportsmanship.
Exactly.
Nonetheless.
Exactly. I know exactly why, because I was thinking about this. We want to talk about sportsmanship and franchises of movies and things like that. The artistic world, because Sean and I are both nerds at heart. We, as much as we are well-rounded people with things, when it comes to athletics and competition. And we're both musicians and we're both nerds. We have, a lot of dedication and fandom towards things that are not that, I think that the two biggest that come to mind for me that we both share are Star Wars and James Bond. And then we, video games as well and things like that and whatnot. We'll make Mario and Zelda comments and whatnot. So, but we, you and I recently experienced a phenomenon that was kind of groundbreaking, and that's what we wanted to talk about today and kind of explore that in its entirety. So the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die, came out. Yep. And I'll just take you through the timeline. And let me say this, too, before we even start. Massive spoilers. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It's been a little more than a month, approximately, since the movie came out in the world. In the United States, came out very beginning of October. So you've had 3 weekends to see the film.
Right.
In theaters.
And then when the podcast comes out, it'll be a month, right?
Just more or less. It's more or less, it's going to be plenty of time.
Right.
So if you don't want to be spoiled, turn off the episode now.
And don't listen to us.
Which is not that tall of an order if you think about it. Okay. Right. And we come back to the episode later. Okay. Don't listen to us now if you haven't seen the movie. And I'll say the same thing when it comes to, because we're going to bring in Star Wars a little bit and things like that. But if you haven't seen No Time to Die, and you don't want to be spoiled, then don't listen to us. And I'll say this too, as a prerequisite, both Sean and I have also not seen No Time to Die.
Right.
Almost out of protest.
Yep.
Okay. So here's what happened. When the movie came out in the United Kingdom first, when it debuted there, the internet was abound with spoilers. And I had purchased my tickets to see it the Thursday night prior to its Friday release. And I thought I was doing an okay job of staying away from spoilers and this, that, the other, and blah, blah, blah. So a Facebook friend of mine sends me a message, and I have Facebook set up because I don't go on Facebook that much for my personal account. I use it. We use it for business, sure. and I have it set up. I have a personal account, but I try and stay away from it. So I have it set up so that Facebook Messenger is on my phone, so that I don't miss any pertinent messages. So anytime anyone messages me, it just pops up on my phone. So this guy messages me, and he spoils the movie for me. And the reason that it's a big spoiler is because James Bond is supposed to die in this movie. Okay?
Yep.
Which is really, I think we'll say now, a big no-no. And when he spoiled it for me, I had no choice but to go in, research it. The cat was out of the bag.
Right.
And I was distraught. Because I think I speak for Sean as well, too, maybe in different lights. And Sean, if you'd like to elaborate on this yourself, too, you can. But, I invest a large portion of my fandom and as such my being into my appreciation of this character and this film franchise. Not so much that he is an idol, but that I'm a fan, and for whatever reason, you can't really explain fandom sometimes, but it does come down to psychology. It does come down to associating yourself with the winner, like all those different things. And we're not really here to dissect the psychology of the fan right now. But this was a major gut punch.
Right.
And I told my mother and my girlfriend, and I said to you that it was spoiled, but I didn't tell you why. And then the next day you and I went to play golf, and the first thing you said to me when you showed up was, I spoiled it for myself.
and unintentionally too, because
Right.
I was planning on seeing it.
Right.
And the issue was that I looked up, like reviews of the movie, and I don't remember what website it was over a month ago at this point, but it was right there in Google.
Yeah.
The spoiler was right there in under the the box that says "Up, Bond dies." I was like, great. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
So the very first thing when it comes to sportsmanship and these movies and their franchises and whatnot is to say, if you want to treat other people the way you'd wish to be treated, don't spoil stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. If you have a big secret like that, do something.
Right.
Prevent that. I don't know what that is. Is it release it all worldwide on the same day? There's got to be something that can be done. You can't, when I was talking to my mother about it, actually, because my mother's a big entertainment person. She, she likes the independent films. She watches different series that all get critical acclaim and whatnot. She watches all the award shows. And she said to me, the one thing that I'm most shocked about is
thank you.
Is that information didn't leak. How is it that information did not leak until after the movie was released? So that right off the bat was like head scratching to her.
Right.
So as a result of this, I was thinking about it, and I ended up returning my tickets. I asked for a refund for my tickets, and I got my money back. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to go see this film now. Not just because it was spoiled, but because these franchises are ruining themselves for no particular reason. And we saw it with Disney ruining the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And now we're seeing with James Bond. I'm sure that there are other franchises that have been ruined as well. And what's funny about it is that, when you read a lot of these discussions and whatnot, you're like, oh, they've gone woke, they've done this, they've done that. And I thought about it and I was like, it's not even so much about going woke. It's just about they don't understand how to make money. They don't understand. And here's the thing that made me think about it. When you make a film like this, when you make a film in a series like this, you are making it more so for the fans than you are for the artistic integrity of the film. Okay. And believe me, I understand that when you do this, there is that balancing act of art versus entertainment. Okay. Right. By contrast, when we look at, a sporting event, we always, sometimes we forget that there is an element to it that if you go to a baseball game, the teams are competing for your entertainment. It's weird to think about that. When I am a musician, when I perform music, I forget sometimes that I am entertaining people by performing because I'm so focused on my artistry. And right. It'd be nice to think of myself solely as an artist, but there is an element of entertainment to it. And what you have to do is you have to balance that. You can't discount one for the other. You have to remember that there is an art to this entertainment, and you are entertaining people through your art. So how you balance that is incredibly important. And in sports, for example, it's a little easier to see because it's a results-oriented business. Your entertainment comes naturally just by competing. When you win, you do a good job. Like all those things kind of work themselves out to a certain degree. With art, it's a little different. because there's no winning and losing per se in art the same way that there is in competition. Right. So we have to look at this a little differently. And the way I look at it is, like I said, is to say, when you make art like this, you are doing it for the fans. Much like how if I'm playing music, if a fan comes up to me and says, hey, can you play this song? If I know the song, I'm going to play it. If I don't know the song, obviously I can't.
Right.
But if
you can make it up as you go along.
Exactly. I get that a lot with like Take Five. Anybody who is just like a very, very amateur jazz fan, where they just kind of stick their toes in the water. The first thing they hear sometimes is Dave Brubeck's Take Five. They're enamored with it. And the next thing you know, that's all people want to hear.
Right.
And as a jazz musician, sometimes it gets old.
Yeah.
But what you have to remember is that without those fans, you're not who you are.
Right.
So you have to kind of work your way around it. Yep. And for me,
it's an organism.
Exactly.
You feed it and it thrives and it continues.
Right. And what I did actually was, in that specific example, I did an arrangement of Take Five and I combined it with the Mission Impossible theme. And so now when people request it, we play that version and people are like, what the heck was that? That was awesome. So there's kind of a give and take to it that we all like. In terms of these movies, what these producers and directors and actors and writers need to remember is that, especially when you have a long-standing franchise, character, whatever, you are doing this for fans. The fans are who make you. And you can't go outside the formula without prior approval, so to speak. I think of Misery, the Stephen King story, where, and I when I think of it now, all I do is I think of the Family Guy interpretation of it. But the idea is that when you have a fan who's obsessed with this fictional character and you're tired of writing for this character, so you kill him off, and then the fan reads it and they're like, no, and in the story, they capture the writer and they force him to bring him back to life, basically, in like this horror thriller type of thing. It's a very extreme, sick way of doing it.
Right.
But that's what I think of when I think of these things. Because it is so ridiculous. If it happened with Sherlock Holmes, and I guess the point I want to make with that is, if you're sick of writing about the character, just stop writing about the character. If you don't want to do it anymore, just say I'm done.
Right.
You don't have to kill them off, so that let the fans have that bit of hope. There's no reason to do that, when if it's not very important and essential to the story,
right?
Well,
here's the thing. I mean, about the Bond movies in general that I find is that it's all about escapism.
Yes.
And we live in a world that's so real, and we know that it's real, but we escape to this fictional world where things are so bizarre and different, and it's a fantasy world, and Bond is supposed to escape. That's
every time.
That's the formula.
You're supposed to be at the end of the film. You're supposed to be standing up cheering, basically.
Yeah.
So
I find that with Daniel Craig, his movies have always been outside the realm of normalcy when it comes to Bond films, in terms of him going rogue and quitting and then coming back. Yeah. And it's like
someone said on YouTube, they said with Daniel Craig, there's the 3 R's. He's either a rookie, rogue, or retired. There's
He's
literally
never just in it.
Exactly, like all the other films.
He never just goes to, he just never goes to MI6 into the office and like, it like
here's your mission, go at it.
Right. So you have the prelude, which is usually him completing the previous mission,
which may have a tie into the next mission,
which may have an tie into the next mission. Then you cut to the office, right, where M is, and they're discussing the next thing. And they, they always go, my God.
Yeah.
With the glasses coming off,
That's an old Jim Gaffigan joke where he goes, why is it that we can always do that? He goes, my God, I can't see a thing without these. It's probably why I wear them,
Right. So like, yeah. And then, it shows Bond gathering information, going on assignment,
going to Q Branch to pick up his gadgets, flirting with Moneypenny.
Right. There's a formula. There's a formula that you have to follow. And it's just because this sounds shallow, but James Bond fans, and I'm making a generalization, but in my experience, we don't like things that are different.
Yeah.
And there are other types of fans that do, but in this case, we don't want things to change. It's like, okay, there can be variations in the story with subtle differences, but the framework should be the same. Bond gets the girl, he beats the bad guy, and they ride off into the sunset.
Right.
And that's how it's supposed to be.
Think, it's as you're saying that, it reminds me of License to Kill back in 1989, which was Timothy Dalton's second movie as James Bond. Mm-hmm. And the story goes is that at that point, they felt that they had run out of applicable Fleming titles and material. Mm-hmm. So it was the first film where they came up with an original title and they had him go rogue. And again, spoiler alert, I'm sorry if you haven't seen 1989's License to Kill, okay? But what happens is Bond, basically Felix Leiter gets married, okay?
Right.
Felix is CIA buddy. And in the pre-title sequence, Bond and Felix Leiter are going to Felix's wedding, and this bad drug dealer, played perfectly by Robert Davi. Mm-hmm. I think he's one of the best villains in the franchise because you end up rooting for him in a certain way. Mm-hmm. He has never been able to capture him, and so in the pre-title sequence, he finally captures him literally right before the wedding, and it's this very dramatic thing. Blah 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 blah. So anyway, what happens is he escapes, and they go after Leiter, and Leiter gets maimed, and his wife is killed, and so Bond basically goes on a revenge mission to kill him, to kill Sanchez, the bad guy, mm-hmm. For killing Felix's wife and maiming Felix. And MI6 is like, you can't do that. You have a job to do. Blah 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 blah. So Bond resigns and goes rogue for the first time, and it follows the formula basically from there. Okay, what the difference is that that was the first movie to get a PG-13 rating in the franchise because they really upped the gore a little bit. You had Benicio del Toro in one of his first roles getting destroyed by a meat grinder. You had Anthony Zerbe's character die by having his head explode in a pressure cooker. It was really you had sharks eating people and whatnot. The world was not ready for that big of a jump. Okay. Right. Looking back on it now, it has aged better. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, yeah. But the fact of the matter is that at the time, the world didn't want it. And it was a very poor performing movie. Yeah. And that's kind of the first aspect of that where we he's the ruthless assassin, the anti-hero that Fleming probably was trying to portray to a certain degree. And so anyway, we fast forward to the Daniel Craig era, and I always say that each actor after Sean Connery has portrayed a very specific part of Bond's character and done so with significant purpose. George Lazenby was the lover. Mm-hmm. Roger Moore was the comedian. Timothy Dalton was the assassin. Pierce Brosnan was the suave, sophisticated guy.
Right.
And Daniel Craig is the anti-hero, mm-hmm. basically. And that's what you get a lot. You get a lot of that in his 5 movies is that anti-hero thing. And the problem is that it got played out. And that happens with a lot of these actors. By the time we all love Roger Moore's films, okay? But by the time he was nearing the end of his tenure, you could see that it was a little played out. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a theory that
I don't know. I like the later movies.
Well, I do too. Don't get me wrong. I'll still watch A View to a Kill. Don't get me wrong at all. Mm-hmm. But you could make that argument. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a theory that every actor who played Bond did either one too many or one too few movies. Either he should have been given one more to kind of right the wrong, or mm-hmm. he should have quit while he was ahead.
Right.
Okay. Connery probably should not have done Never Say Never Again. Lazenby.
Well, that's not part of the.
It's not part of the canon. I get that.
Right.
But I mean, for the purposes of the theory.
Okay.
That's what I say. Lazenby should have gotten another chance, another one, but we all know what happened with George Lazenby. Mm-hmm. Roger Moore. You can make the argument he probably should not have done A View to a Kill, although we both love the film.
He almost didn't do it either.
He for the last couple of films, he was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And they kept bringing him back.
Right.
Timothy Dalton probably should have gotten one more chance after License to Kill.
With GoldenEye? Or just
another movie. I mean, there was a 6-year gap,
That's true, yeah.
For financial reasons and this, that, the other. Pierce Brosnan should not have ended on Die Another Day. If you think about it, Pierce Brosnan wanted to do one more before he rode off into the sunset, and he wanted to do Casino Royale. And they wanted to do it in a way that was not a reboot, because the reboot idea, which I reject, I don't see it as a reboot. I see it still as continuing through, and I have theories behind that. Came about because there was all of that success from like Batman Begins and all of those franchises. So again, what the producers did was they saw dollar signs, not the ability to please fans.
I mean, if Casino Royale is Bond in the nascent stages, it wouldn't have made sense for Pierce Brosnan to do it because he would have been older by then, right?
And I think what they were going to do was they were not going to make him a raw rookie. They would have just continued on from that, but borrowed a lot of the story elements.
Yeah. Because Casino Royale came out in 2006?
Yes.
So, and Die Another Day was 2002? Yeah, he could have done it.
He could have done it. They changed that because they thought the world was different. I'm not going to sit here and talk about chapter and verse, but there is plenty of research and stories told about why Pierce Brosnan was, for lack of a better term, fired, let go, and why Daniel Craig was cast. So we can kind of harp through that a lot, but what we got here with No Time to Die fits that as well. And if you look at a lot of the reviews, not from critics, because let's face it, Hollywood and the critics are tainted. I don't think it's a secret that critics are basically paid to write good reviews.
Right.
Look at the real fans and their reactions, especially look at like the YouTube fan stuff. 99% of them say, you can skip this movie.
Right.
You know, and they're like, and we don't skip Bond movies.
Right.
You know, even Ben Shapiro reviewed it and he was like, eh. Yeah. You know, I was like, yeah. If Ben Shapiro was reviewing a movie and talking like this, okay, like thumbs up, you know?
Yeah.
So the whole thing was, and I've watched a lot of these reviews, and, you know, there are tons of like these major Bond YouTube channels. They have a huge, you know, they have so many podcasts and videos and this, and they're all saying the same thing. They're like, what? You know, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So what I did was I tried to go back in and understand why this decision was made. And the first thing I saw was, if you go back to the early stages of the pre-production of this film, Danny Boyle was brought on as the director. Okay. And then he was let go. They parted ways because of creative differences. Mm-hmm. And the story was, at the time, Danny Boyle wanted to kill off James Bond. And so that's why they got rid of him. And then
you were talking about that.
And then it comes out after the film that it was the exact opposite. The producers wanted to do it. And Danny Boyle said, are you crazy? And so he left. And that's where I was. The first thing is that if you have Danny Boyle telling you no, maybe it's time to listen.
Right.
Daniel Craig, who has been a producer for the films, the last couple of films, has made it very clear he wanted to go deep into Fleming to portray the anti-hero. Right. And he drew so much from this and whatnot, and he basically kind of forced his way into the writers' rooms and with the directors and with so much with the producers and whatnot to create this, the character that he thought Fleming was trying to create. And so I was looking at that, and I realized that, this film draws a lot of those themes from the last two novels that Ian Fleming wrote of James Bond. And remember that, canonically speaking, the movies are different than the books, okay? Mm-hmm. Ian Fleming's last two Bond novels were You Only Live Twice and The Man with the Golden Gun. Whereas, for film purposes, You Only Live Twice was the fifth movie, and The Man with the Golden Gun was the ninth movie, and now there are 25.
Right.
Okay. So they went back into a lot of into those books and tried to pull out a lot of substance from that, and that's where I saw the similarities, because in You Only Live Twice, okay, which has some. The movie back in 1965 obviously borrows a lot. And then this movie, No Time to Die, borrows from it as well.
Right.
What happens at the end of that book, spoiler alert, if you haven't read it, go read the book if you don't want to be spoiled, okay, is that so Bond is in Japan fighting Blofeld. And what ultimately happens is, like, he escapes this garden of death torture nest that Blofeld had created. He finally kills Blofeld after all of this time, and he just tries to, like, Tarzan swing his way out of this place, and he's hurting. He is hurt. Fleming's thoughts are things like Bond wished for the sweet release of death. Okay. And he ultimately falls from the Tarzan swing into the ocean. And he's then found by Kissy Suzuki, who was a character in the book and was a character used in the movie You Only Live Twice. And Suzuki realizes he's got amnesia. And Suzuki had worked with Bond prior to all of this in the novel. So when she basically fell for him. And when Bond came to, he had amnesia. Like they all thought he was dead. She finds him. He's got amnesia. And she uses this as her opportunity to keep him for herself, which she does at the end of the book. Basically, she tries to get him to stay, and without knowing it, and he's well aware that he has amnesia. Mm-hmm. He's basically going off of what he's been told. You're a Japanese farmer, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know, right?
Just look in the mirror. I don't think.
And he impregnates her. So what happens is at the very end of the book, he still doesn't know that he has impregnated Kissy Suzuki. And what she had done throughout her tenure with him while he had amnesia was basically to hide all newspapers and things like that had any mention to the outside world.
Okay.
And he stumbles upon like a newspaper clipping that has a Russian city on it. And that triggers something for him. And he basically says, I have to go. This looks familiar to me. I feel like this place is in a place called Russia. I need to follow this lead to figure out who I am. Almost kind of like Jason Bourne style.
Yeah.
Okay. And the book ends with him going off to this Russian city and Kissy Suzuki thinking, should I have told him that that I'm pregnant with his kid? And then the last part is M writes an obituary for James Bond. And the words that Ralph Fiennes uses in the No Time to Die for his eulogy were the exact same words used by M in the book when he wrote the obituary. Okay. So book ends. You come up to Man with the Golden Gun. The story starts off with MI6, and people are like calling in years later saying like, I'm James Bond, and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever you say, the whole world knows he's not around. Mm-hmm. And finally, someone calls in and says that he's James Bond. And the operator receiving the phone call is like, something's not right about this. Like, this isn't just another phony person. So she puts it through to higher command and whatnot. And essentially what they do is this person puts Bond through, certain number of tests to see really who he is and whatnot. And they're like, it might be him. And what ends up happening is Bond, when he went to Russia, was brainwashed by the KGB. He goes back to MI6. He tries to assassinate M and fails and gets knocked out again. And M basically says to Bill Tanner, the chief of staff, we got to fix him. We got to fix him. And he sends him off. They say, we're going to send him off to find Francisco Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun. And Tanner's like, what? He'll die on that. He goes, if he dies, he dies. He was already dead kind of in a certain way. If he doesn't, then he's back, something like that. And so that's basically what happens there. And so my thing about this is that you obviously stole a lot of that when you were doing No Time to Die. Bond has a kid. He, makes the choice to die, blah, 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 blah. And unfortunately, they didn't do it in a way that gives any hope. Although at the end of the movie, you still get James Bond will return. So for me, I look at it and I say, if the next movie picks up after this one with a different actor as James Bond, and it kind of follows the path that went in the books where he has amnesia or something like that, like he survived this somehow and all that kind of stuff, then all of a sudden you have given some credence back to this movie.
Well, it wasn't very clear that he died, right? Like,
Right.
There was like explosions around him.
Right.
But you don't actually see him
get obliterated.
Yeah. So, or if he really was killed, then every movie would be a precursor to that. Right. Timeline wise. And that was just really the farthest point in the timeline.
Right. So yeah, it's just, that's the way I'm looking at it. And
or can I just thought of this.
Go ahead.
What if he got a scar from that and he has the scar just like he has in the books?
Yeah, that could be.
Now, that would not totally redeem it, but that would be a pretty big save.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's a Mariano Rivera save right there.
Like if he comes back, if he saves the day, he has a scar on his face and he looks like the Bond from the Fleming novels.
Yeah.
Then we have that would be amazing.
That would be a situation that could only be described by the Dumb and Dumber quote of, just when I think you couldn't get any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
I'll make sure to lower that.
That's why I tried to back up from the mic. But yeah, you go ahead and do that. Yeah. And, you know, I get that, you know, that Daniel Craig wanted to be more anti-hero Fleming Bond and whatnot. But you have to understand, you're doing this for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, perhaps the true fans will know in the back of their head, like we were just discussing, that maybe there's an out here.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it was done in the film was so superficially traumatic to the majority of fans
mm-hmm.
that you did more harm than good.
Right.
You know? I don't know how else to say it other than I'm not going to see this film until the next one comes out to see if, you know, there is some way that they retcon this.
Like if it's either a sequel or if it's either a prequel to it or...
Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. If the next movie is either a prequel or it reboots them again, or it's now a different timeline, then it's over. Then there's no saving it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you screwed the pooch there. If the next movie basically says he survived this, then we have a discussion. We have hope.
So, but what if every single movie was a prequel? I mean, is that still bad?
I think it is. And I think it is because of what you said earlier. This is escapism. This is a formula where you're not supposed to have this kind of stuff.
Right.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and here's the other thing. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the film, okay? Again, 1969, or I'm sorry, 69. 1969. Sorry to spoil it. Steals from Fleming again, significantly. But what happens is Bond gets married, and as he's leaving the wedding, Tracy, his wife, is shot and killed. Okay? The movie ends on a downer.
I thought it was Teresa.
Well, her name is Teresa. She goes by Tracy. Okay. But that's stolen directly from Fleming. And it's not Bond who dies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So there are movies that end on downers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Hell, Casino Royale kind of ends on one because Vesper doesn't live.
Right.
Okay, but in all of those, those situations, from the book what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, if we know from the book that Bond is actually going to survive this, show me.
Right.
James Bond, if you really want him to become a family man and whatnot, a family guy, if you will,
mm-hmm.
okay, that's out of character.
Yes.
You know, he is the anti-hero. There's a part of it where he just can't be that.
Right.
You know, he lives this life for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go too deep into it because I'm sure that eventually I'll write a book about this and people will mock me for it. But, you know, the idea is that you stepped outside the formula too much here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have one way to save it. And let's see if they save it.
Yeah.
You know, and to go back to the idea of sportsmanship, you know, let's compare this now to like Star Wars. Okay. When they made the sequel trilogy, we saw things that mimicked this for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Money, power, all the things that the Sith love. Okay. Control.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams, you know, was very clear, especially after making episode 9. He was just like, this isn't the movie I was going to make. You know, The Last Jedi was very divisive, much like No Time to Die. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like here, I guess the best way to compare apples to apples is this. Again, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the sequel trilogy, in the sequel trilogy, in each movie, they kill off, you know, or one of the main characters dies from the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. It's Han Solo in episode 7, it's Luke Skywalker in episode 8, and it's Leia Organa in episode 9.
Right.
With theoretically speaking, those were the worst decisions that I think were made. Now, practically speaking, I understand why Han Solo left in episode 7. Okay, there's an archetype there that's followed, that the hero's journey is at a certain point, the mentor has to go. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what happened with Obi-Wan in episode 4. That's what happened with Qui-Gon in episode 1. Okay. Right. Further, Harrison Ford made it very clear in the original trilogy he wanted the character to die to give it some gravitas. And so when they were talking to him about this, I think he kind of wanted that in this film finally. And that was, you were either going to get him on the film by doing that, or you weren't going to get him at all.
Right.
So that is a painful scene to watch, and I still won't really watch it, but I understand why it had to happen. Okay. In episode 9 with Leia, Carrie Fisher died before that movie. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you almost had to, because of that. You were screwed.
Right.
Okay. But I think that episode 8 was the biggest problem because Luke Skywalker is a hero, and we didn't want to see Luke that way. How many people did we see on YouTube say the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Luke is on screen for 5 minutes max, was light years better than The Last Jedi?
Because that's how we know him.
Yes.
That is how we remember Luke Skywalker.
People were crying over that.
We don't. I did.
Me too.
We don't remember. See, here's the thing. When I saw Luke Skywalker on the Octo, basically sucking the tit of the the blue milk tit.
I think it was a green milk one.
Green milk tit, whatever. Yeah. And he looked like a homeless guy. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, this is, I knew something was off when I first saw him, and he first appeared in episode 7 at the end.
At the very end, yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is kind of exciting because I don't know where it's going to go. And then in the beginning of 8, like, he just dismisses, gets the lightsaber thrown at him, he tosses it away, and
walks
goes
away.
down, and I'm like, I was kind of I was kind of expecting him to like put the black, the black clothes back on and maybe have a shave.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
is Star Wars sponsored by Schick or Beck? Gillette. The best a Jedi can get.
But like the thing is, it's not the way we as fans remember him, and it was very jarring to see that. And it was, here's the thing, Ryan Johnson's, not to get too much into it.
No, go ahead.
Ryan Johnson's, Ryan Johnson's, I guess, MO was subverting expectations, right? So like, let's do something completely different. Let's do something that people don't expect. That's not always a good thing.
Yeah.
It's first, Rey in episode 7 or episode 8 is
nobody.
Nothing, right? In episode 9, she turns out being Palpatine's granddaughter. Like, what? Wait, well, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
Like we did a complete 180, and it's very obvious that a lot of things were retconned.
Yes.
In episode 9 from episode 8.
Yeah, they had to fix stuff.
Like, the character Rose had what? Maybe 30 seconds of dialogue in the entirety of episode 9.
Yeah.
When she was like one of the main characters in 8. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and not for nothing, it became so divided, this mentality of you either like it or you don't like it. It became so divided that if you didn't like episode 8, it was because you were a misogynist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where do you get that from?
It became a political thing. It became a woke thing. Yeah.
It became a woke thing. And it's like, no, that's not what this is. Rose is legitimately, I'm sorry to say, kind of a shitty character.
Yeah.
Because she's supposed to kind of be the comic relief, but we already have Finn for that. Like, so like, and then C-3PO, like, you can't have 3 comic reliefs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then I'm sorry, but Vice Admiral Holdo, like, Godspeed?
Yeah.
What? Who says that? This isn't Star Trek. This is May the Force be with you. Like, you don't, like, I don't know. It just so happened that those 2 characters are female. Okay. And they're in somewhat of a position of authority. And because I don't like them, that somehow makes me a misogynist. Whoops. But they're not good characters.
Right.
You know who should have been on that frigate? You know who should have been there instead of her?
Who?
Lando Calrissian.
Yep.
That's who should have shown up.
Yep.
That's who should have been there. That's who should have been Vice Admiral. Not Holdo. Not this rando we've never seen before.
Not Rando, Lando.
Right. Yeah. I don't want a rando. I want a Lando.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like she was shoehorned in there. And let me tell you, Laura Dern is a wonderful actress.
Yes. She
was great in Jurassic Park. She's got a great body of work, and Rose's actor as well, Lisa Marie Tran, or Kelly Marie Tran. Sorry, Kelly Marie Tran is. I don't know too much of what she's done before.
Not a lot.
To be honest,
not a lot.
But like, her character comes off as, and I probably said this on a previous podcast, but her character comes off as, Disney held a Who's the Biggest Star Wars fan contest, and she won, and the prize was to be in the movie.
Right.
That was her character. And I just didn't buy it. I'm sorry.
You know what? Where that kind of ties back into No Time to Die is that, in the film, James Bond is retired at the beginning of the film. And so the 007 code name is assigned to a new agent. That new agent is named Nomi, played by Lashana Lynch, who was a black female.
Right.
Okay. So again, and from what I understand, the film was not very woke about it, which is fine. It's more about the fact that the critics and the fans and this, that, the other kind of looked at it and went, are you shoehorning this in?
Right.
Is this supposed to be lip service to the communities that demand, a black female Bond, so to speak?
Right. Mm-hmm.
These are the same people who think that Idris Elba should be the next 007.
When he himself
said no.
I don't fit this. I do not fit this role.
Yes.
He said it himself.
Yeah.
Like, people need to kind of separate for a second the politics behind this and look at the character.
Look at the fantasy. Look at the art.
Right. It's just like, if you could just as easily have a Middle Eastern Bond with light skin who has a British accent play Bond as much as a dark-skinned man from Wales with not a great accent not play Bond. It's not so much about the race as it is about the appearance.
Right.
And I think people need to look at that, take a step back and look at that, in a holistic way, not holistic as in holy,
right,
but holistic as in the whole
picture.
The whole picture. And look at as I say this all the time, look at the forest for the trees here.
Right.
If I see a Bond with, and this is, of course, this is going to sound racist, and if you want to think that, that's fine. But if I see a Bond who's very dark skin, who is a woman, that's already out of character for
Correct.
what the character should get. Because it is about attitude. Character is about attitude, but it's also about
properly portraying the realistic part of it. Yeah.
Physical identity. Like, look, it's okay. Luke Skywalker dies, right? And let's say, he comes back as a Force ghost, right?
Right.
And let's say that for some reason Mark Hamill's not available to portray it, and they send out a cast list, right? Okay, here we go. The spot for Luke Skywalker opened up. That would be like them casting an Asian person to play Mark Hamill or to play Luke Skywalker, right? Or to cast a Hispanic person or a woman to play Luke Skywalker. Right. Like, that's not how we know him.
It's like casting James Earl Jones to play Luke Skywalker.
Right. So here's the thing too, and I'll tell you where they got it right.
Okay.
The Marvel movies, Spider-Man.
Okay.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When Peter Parker dies in the comics. Okay. Miles Morales is bitten by the spider. And he becomes the next Spider-Man. That works. And I'll tell you why. Because they made it very clear that you have that Spider-Man the powers of Spider-Man can be transferable based on who the spider bites.
Right. Kind of like Doctor Who in a certain way.
Right. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah.
You want to have someone who's darker skinned or someone who's different looking other than the normal Bond, like the white male Bond, to play a Bond-like character, you want to make a 009 that is someone different, go for it.
And Daniel Craig said that himself.
That's great.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
said, don't mess with the formula. You know, write these characters.
All for it.
Yeah.
It's always it's nothing to do with race. It's the appearance. It is the look of the character.
Right.
To which we are ascribing, that we know that we are comfortable with which we are comfortable.
Well, that goes back to Daniel Craig being blonde. You know,
right? I wasn't crazy about that.
No,
and you know, and we've said this before. He's ripped.
Yeah,
like he's got washboard abs. Bond is not supposed to have washboard abs.
He's an out of shape dude. He's you and me, man.
He is the everyman hero.
Yeah,
and it just, you know, it's such a divided subject, and I can see where other people are coming from. From where they come. From where they come.
Yeah.
From whence they come. God damn it. but like I really want to try to see both sides of this, because I do understand that people want Bond to embody someone that represents their socio their identity,
socioeconomic status, so to speak.
Status, their identity, their demographic, and you want someone to be a champion for that. I'm totally on board with that. Just make a new character. Look at Shaft. Shaft is a black male. He should stay a black male.
If Daniel Craig wants to play Shaft, I'm not going to see those movies. Okay.
No. And I thought, you know, I saw the original and I saw the reboot. They're fantastic movies. Mm-hmm. They're great.
Yeah.
But like, it's a different type of hero.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually, well, they have a lot of similarities, believe it or not. But between Bond and Shaft, there's just a lot of similarities there. But don't mess with the physical identity of it.
Well, that's like going back to how when after Die Another Day, they wanted to spin off with Jinx and Halle Berry.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. You've created a new character. Awesome. You know, you want to make this superhero or this main character a female who has an African American background. Mm-hmm. And you want her to kick some ass.
Right.
Great.
Here's a great example. The Mandalorian.
Yep.
Okay. Gina Carano, Cara Dune. Oh God, what was the other one? The Asian woman in that movie.
Ming-Na Wen, who played Fennec Shand. Yeah.
And then the two Mandalorian warriors,
Bo-Katan, it was that was Katie Sackhoff, and I can't remember the other one. That was Sasha Banks was the actress. I can't remember her character's name.
But when the four of them were on that ship, and they were kicking ass, that was one of the coolest scenes I have ever seen.
Yeah,
like that was awesome. I watched it. I watched it multiple times.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool. And here's the thing that I liked about Favreau. He didn't make it a feminist thing.
No.
He didn't make it a kick in the balls, see women can do this too sort of thing. He just played it as a matter of fact. These are superheroes kicking ass.
These are great characters.
They're awesome characters. Yeah. And they're new characters. Well, newish.
Yeah.
They're newish characters, right? Kicking ass, taking names. There's nothing derisive about it. There's nothing, gratuitously woke about it. it's just them being them.
Yeah.
And that was one of the coolest scenes. I think I watched it like 5 or 6 times. It was so cool to see them fighting.
Yeah.
And winning. And it was great, you know? So I'm all for making new characters that represent various demographics because people of color need that. They need someone to champion they need someone that represents them.
And in a way, that's good sportsmanship.
Yep.
You're giving the fans, the people,
Absolutely.
what they want.
Yep.
You know, just to kind of tie it in, you know, as we're trying to talk about sportsmanship in these artistic franchises, okay, there are so many ways to treat other people the way that they would want to be treated.
Yeah.
Okay. These fans want something.
Right.
And we're not asking for the impossible.
Right.
You know,
there are things that you can tinker with which you can tinker.
Right.
And there are things that you don't tinker.
Yeah. You don't touch it. As our Lord and Savior MC Hammer says, you can't touch this.
Right. So it's all about, you know, you do have to pay some service to the fans, but you do have to make some executive decisions. And it's not impossible. It's very difficult because, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of stress that are on some of these producers' shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, but
I'm sure it's a lot easier for them to sleep though when they see the buckets of cash that they have.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, like, you know, hey, if you like episode 8, that's great. More power to you. It wasn't my cup of tea.
If you like No Time to Die, great.
Awesome.
I hated it.
I just can't, and you know, I just don't like the way they go with it.
Yeah,
and that's fine. If you like it, that's great.
And we also have the right to we reserve the right to change our opinions if we have to.
Yep.
You know,
based on future movies or whatever. You know, that's true. You're allowed to think multiple things.
If they retcon,
it's not hypocritical.
Right.
You can think multiple things.
Right. If they retcon episodes 7, 8, and 9 out of the canon, all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know,
which there were talks about that.
Yeah. So
we'll see. But anyway,
I guess the point here, and I'll to state it again, is that as you know, fans in terms of sportsmanship here do have a desire to see certain things. Baseball fans want to see their team win. Can't always get it because it's competition.
Right.
Okay. But that's what their desire. And they have the right to be upset when things are done poorly.
Right.
They don't have the right to act immaturely, but they can, you know, how many times do people talk on radio or analyze it and whatnot, and they just say, I don't like this. This surprises me. This blah, 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 blah. You know, they're allowed to have opinions in certain forums. And the same thing goes here. The fans want certain things and they're not getting it. And we have to ask why. You know, why is it that difficult to understand the nature of sportsmanship in terms of this art? You're not competing here. So the sportsmanship in competition doesn't fully apply the same way because it's sportsmanship in art.
Right.
There are fans here. You need to do a certain level of fan service.
Right.
And let's say this too. You can't please everybody. Okay? Anytime a decision is made, something happens, you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You look at other things to determine your successes and failures as a result of that. And that's what the case here. And I think that the true mark of this is to look at the way that this movie is performing, and it is not doing well in North America.
Right. Let the free market decide.
Exactly. And that's what's happening. And and that's another reason why I returned my tickets. Was I said, and I'm not here to cancel them and demand my pound of flesh and whatnot. No, the more sportsmanlike thing to do is to let the free market decide, play the role that you want to play with that, and to dialogue about it.
Right.
That's what we're doing. We're talking about it. I'm not going out there, looking to verbally accost Daniel Craig or the producers or anything like that, for what they did. If Daniel Craig were to ring my doorbell right now, I'm not going to open it and say, "What were you thinking?" and beat him.
God, that's assault.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, minor details. Okay. Right. Spoiler alert. That's assault. Yeah. And this is a pepper. I would say, "Hello, sir. It's a great pleasure to meet you. I'm a big fan. Please come in. Can I get you some coffee or tea? Mm-hmm. And now I'd like to talk to you about this. I'd like to figure out why you made these decisions." Yeah. And I would calmly say, "Look, I disagree, and here's why, but we can find common ground." So the moral of this episode, I think, is that sportsmanship does matter in these things, just not in the way that we see it with competition. Mm-hmm. And you and I think, have really explained through this what we mean, where why these things can be done better.
Right.
And it was kind of therapeutic in doing so, because let's face it, you and I are deeply invested in a lot of this stuff. And I had to research a lot of psychological stuff on how you mourn fictional characters. This stuff affected us. I didn't sleep well that night. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out why, because I had to understand why this was going on and who I am and all that kind of stuff and whatnot. And I felt the same way after seeing the Star Wars movies. I guess the only difference is that after seeing episode 9, I was like, great, I got that out of the way. I just slept
after
like a
episode
baby.
After episode 8, we saw it together in the theater. I literally said, after the movie was over, in front of everyone, I said, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah. And I did not sleep that night.
That was my first reaction. I was like, "What was this?"
Yeah. And
what happened here?
You and I, when we would get together to watch Mandalorian episodes, I think the first thing you said to me is, "Can we talk about episode 9 and what a dumpster fire that was?"
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, the only thing is that I actually slept after that because I knew it was going to be one. And I was just like, okay, let's get this over with. I hope I never have to do this again.
I just don't get me wrong. I love Palpatine, but
yeah,
they had to bring it. I thought he was just going to be a Force ghost.
Something,
that would have made more sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Brought him back and say, "Go for Palpatine."
I am the Senate.
Yeah. I got it. Hey there, how's my favorite Sith? Whoa. Who's they? The hell's an aluminum falcon? That thing wasn't even fully paid off yet. And what's funny about that is that take on it, the parodies and the satire, light years better than the sequel trilogy.
Oh yeah. Or if you've ever watched the Plinkett Star Wars reviews,
God, Palpatine's behind it all.
Those are better than the movies.
Yes. Oh man. Before we go, I want to share this too. So when I was watching the Ben Shapiro review of No Time to Die, at the very end, he says, "Oh, and here's the most unbelievable thing out of all of it." Okay. I think he has 3 kids. I think he said they're 7, 4, and 1, something like that. I could be wrong.
Ooh,
and he goes,
that's quite a combo.
Yeah. And he goes, in this movie where there's 1 kid, you think that that's how a child's going to act like that? Mm-hmm. No,
Kids don't act that way.
Right.
Okay? I've got the kids. I know how they act. That's not that.
Yeah.
Don't believe it. Period. Done.
Yeah,
you know?
when you have a Star Wars movie with a kid in it.
That was a Bond movie with a kid in it.
A Bond movie with a kid in it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting my two franchises screwed up. Yeah, whenever you have a kid in it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm
Can
sorry.
you see James Bond with a lightsaber?
Well, that I can.
Yeah. Time to get some manga, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we milked this cow dry.
Yep.
You know, anything else for the good of the order on it?
No, I think we're good.
All right. I think we've gotten our money's worth with the copay for this therapy session.
Yep.
So I look forward to your letters, everybody. As you know, CBS cares. As a reminder, as always, osipfoundation.org. You can contact the show with the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org. We're at facebook.com/osipfoundation, Twitter and Instagram @osipfoundation, #HowYouPlayTheGame. You can see some of our episodes on YouTube as well. I hope that this episode brings new fans to the podcast too, because of the nature of what we've been discussing.
Right.
And, so I'm just glad that we were able to do this because it was therapeutic and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Sean, thank you very much as always.
Of course.
And everybody out there, enjoy the changing leaves and everything. We'll catch everybody just a couple of weeks. And until then, James Bond will return and treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by SoundSpring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.